I continued the journey, taking over the reins from the coachman. It was already late, and Sakuragi village was still far away. I was afraid we wouldn't make it to the village by nightfall. There were no other villages to stop at along our route. I wanted to keep going through the night, but the heavy rain had flooded the road. Twice already the carriage had nearly gotten stuck in the mud. Without Anko and the coachman's help, I would have never been able to get it back on the road. The lack of moonlight didn't help. It was hard to see where I was going. I didn't want to stop in the open, though. That would only invite trouble if bandits passed by. In the end, I decided to stop near Moon Ravine Cave. The entrance was easily accessible from the road. When I explained my plan to Princess Kaguya, she simply nodded. Supporting the half-conscious Anko, I guided Princess Kaguya into the cave. It was warm and dry inside. A type of luminescent moss grew along the sloping entrance tunnel. We walked carefully. Not far from the entrance, the tunnel widened. A streak of light illuminated the end of the long corridor. When we reached it, it was like entering another world. The ceiling soared high above. Stalactites and stalagmites were scattered everywhere. The path before us split in two, with high rock cliffs on either side. In the middle was a gaping chasm, interspersed with cascading waterfalls and lava flows from within the mountain. Light from the hot lava filled the corridors and crevices along the cliff sides. I took the path on the left. From yesterday's survey, I knew this side was wider and easier to navigate. A few hundred meters ahead was a cavity in the cliffside with a flat, rocky base, suitable for resting. I pulled out 2 thick blankets from my waterproof backpack and laid them out for Princess Kaguya and Anko to sleep on. After they were comfortably settled, I did a quick patrol to ensure our surroundings were safe. Then I made a campfire near Anko in front of the cave cavity. Princess Kaguya had used her large towel to shield herself from the rain. I had also wrapped Anko in a towel, but I was soaked through. I couldn't change. I'd left my spare clothes in the carriage so my backpack could fit the blankets and some supplies. The cold was bone-chilling, numbing. I couldn't keep wearing wet clothes all night. I sighed, taking off my jacket and trousers and hanging them near the campfire to dry. My thick leather armor was also wet, but I didn't want to sit in just my underwear, even though Princess Kaguya and Anko were asleep. Hopefully, the armor would dry quickly if I sat near the fire. I took out a small kettle and water bottle. My hands were wrinkled and shaking from the cold as I boiled water to make herbal tea. Then I remembered the powder for the brew was in the pocket of my wet clothes. Oh no. I hoped it wasn't ruined. Anxiously, I retrieved the medicine pouch from my clothes and examined it. Fortunately, it was waterproof, so the contents were still dry. I sorted through it and opened the parchment containing the energy-restoring powder. Carefully, I poured it into the tea thermos and stirred. Then I sat cross-legged in front of the campfire, slowly sipping the hot tea. Warmth spread through me, chasing away the chill in my bones. The wounds on my body hadn't healed and still stung, but my muscles, which had been locked in pain, slowly began to relax. I took a deep breath and tried to analyze the day's events. Dark creatures like the Skeleton King and his minions couldn't have just appeared on their own, let alone attack us in such an organized manner. Dark creature attacks were usually based on their natural instincts, brutal and without calculation. They would typically harm anyone who stood in their way. But now, someone had summoned them from the dark dimension and managed to control them to steal the royal seal. Who could control such monsters? I closed my eyes. On my 8th birthday, Elder Yun took me to his hidden library. He locked me in there, refusing to let me out until I had memorized the contents of the history of Ninja Clan conflicts. One chapter explained the Dark Dimension and the creatures that had crossed over from there. It also contained a list of clans that used black magic to control monsters. But all those clans had been defeated during the War of Light. Their members were executed, their books burned to ashes. No one knew about the darkness summoning techniques they had once used. Our clan members who had infiltrated the mafia clan's lairs hadn't mentioned anything about such books. Our spies had once heard rumors that the Mitsurugi clan had found one of the forbidden books, but upon further investigation, the book in question turned out to be a fake. If that was the case, could a member of a forbidden clan have escaped? They could have infiltrated and hidden, then used their black magic to summon the skeleton monsters. But why act now? I shook my head, dizzy with speculation about who could be the Skeleton King's boss. Clearly, if they only wanted to thwart this trade agreement, they could have simply killed the princess. But they only took the royal seal. That meant they wanted to use it. For what else but to forge documents? What kind of document forgery, I had no idea, but Princess Kaguya had mentioned earlier that there was a protective seal on the royal seal. If they couldn't open that seal, then they would come again to kidnap someone who could break it. A flicker of anxiety pressed on my chest. Princess Kaguya was still in danger. My muscles tensed again. I forced myself to take deep breaths. My body felt battered. I wanted nothing more than to curl up and relieve the fatigue from working all day. But I couldn't sleep now. I had to keep protecting the princess. There was no one else to take turns guarding her while Anko was still sick. I looked over at Anko, who was sleeping restlessly. I poured some tea from the kettle and woke her briefly so she could drink. She had a high fever, her body burning up. The poison on that arrow must have been incredibly strong. She was still sick even after taking the antidote. I gritted my teeth. Could Anko hold out until we reached the kingdom of Fumo? I prepared a warm compress for Anko. Soon the herbal tea seemed to take effect. Her fever gradually subsided until, at last, her breathing eased into a peaceful rhythm. I gazed at the firelight licking the darkness of the cave. Anko, if only you were awake, she would know what to do. She always did. What would happen if we made it safely to Fumo? Even if the princess survived, the royal seal had been stolen. With a failure this grave, the royal court would surely blame father and the academy head. Anko would be stripped of her rank, her career in ruins. My exam? A disaster. The relationship between the Ninja Academy and the Masamune clan. The years of work father poured into it, all gone. This could be the end of his leadership. He'd be so disappointed. If the elders replaced him, I would lose his protection too. Anko and I judged, punished by the clan. Ostracized, exiled, cast out. Images swirled in my mind, dark and suffocating. A hand on my shoulder, Anko's hand. I could almost feel it. Focus, Tadashi. You're on a mission. For a ninja, losing focus can mean losing your life. Her voice, a whisper in the darkness, brought me back. Right. I can't afford to panic. I still had to protect Anko and Princess Kaguya. I cleaned up the drinking equipment, then put on my now dry jacket and pants. Princess Kaguya was sleeping soundly, but Anko, her fever had spiked again. I replaced the compress, worry twisting in my gut. Towards dawn, she finally stirred, but her face was pale, her breath shallow. Suddenly, a flicker of movement outside the cave. Left flank. Thunk! Thunk! I jumped, deflecting 3 arrows with my sword. 2 more whizzed past, thudding into Anko's blanket. They were back. But before I could react, 4 shuriken flew from the cave mouth in a deadly arc, each one finding its mark with a sickening crack. Anko! She was on her feet, sword gripped tight, though she swayed with every movement. Behind us, Princess Kaguya's startled gasp echoed in the cave. Anko didn't hesitate. Tadashi, protect the princess, she commanded. I'll distract the Skeleton King. Understood. Princess Kaguya scrambled back, her face ashen. I guided her towards a corner, minimizing our exposure. 3 skull monsters lurched forward, but I cut them down before they could reach us. But even as I fought, Princess Kaguya's cry pierced the chaos. Anko, watch out! Anko was hemmed in by a horde of skull monsters, their bony claws reaching for her. And behind them, The skeleton king, his sword raised high, ready to strike her down. Without thinking, I let 3 shuriken fly. They found their mark, deflecting the king's blow at the last moment. He roared in frustration, buying Anko precious seconds. She spun, a whirlwind of blades, narrowly avoiding his next attack. For a moment, she teetered on the edge of collapse, then used a nearby skull to regain her balance, slashing out again. My breath caught in my throat. Anko wasn't fully recovered, yet here she was, pushing herself to the limit for this mission. I had to help her. I ripped my sword free from the grip of 2 skeletons, then struck with all my might, a flurry of punches and elbows fueled by desperation. Crack, crack. Both skulls shattered, sent flying into the darkness. But it wasn't enough. As long as the skeleton king lived, he would just summon more of his minions. I can't protect the princess and fight them all. Your Highness, stay back, I commanded, already forming the hand seals. The star shield, a dangerous technique, draining, painful, but I had no other choice. I slammed my fist to the ground, summoning the power within. Whoosh! A torrent of bluish-white energy erupted around Princess Kaguya, forming a shimmering dome of protection. But the center of that light, it was like a hand, gripping me, squeezing the very life out of me. My vision swam, chest constricted, yet I gritted my teeth, forcing the energy to flow until the shield was complete. By the time it settled, I could barely breathe, let alone stand. But I had to keep going. Time to deal with these skeletons. Dodging, weaving, I cut a path through the horde, each swing of my sword a desperate prayer. They swarmed the shield, unable to penetrate its defenses, giving me the advantage. But then I saw him, the skeleton king, summoning reinforcements. I fought my way towards Anko, but more of them surged between us, forcing us apart. I tried to keep her in sight, but it was like trying to track a single leaf in a storm. This mission, it was my responsibility. Mine. Anko was injured and I couldn't be there to protect her. Every blow she took was my fault. She was in trouble. The skeleton king was toying with her now, her movements slower, each parry more labored. I should have seen it, his strategy, his focus on her. But I was too distracted, too focused on my own fight. Should have. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. The skeleton king had her backed against the cliff edge. As she deflected one of his attacks, he slammed a brutal kick into her back. She staggered, her foot slipping on the loose shale. I lunged forward, reaching for her, but she was already falling, tumbling over the precipice. Anko! My heart seized, a cold fist squeezing the air from my lungs. It wasn't like the story said, where time slowed down. It all happened so fast, yet I saw it all. The shock on her face as she fell, then the small, sad smile she gave me. A silent farewell. And then, she was gone.